to the Power of One. Today, I am going to be speaking with a powerhouse, Kyra, who was a director, producer, and storyteller. And guess what? She is from West Oak Lane, just like myself. Philly has some powerhouses, and I am so excited that she is joining me today. Welcome to the show, Kyra.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. And I didn't know you was from West Oak Lane too.
Born and raised
Yes, Simon's
West
Playground.
Oakland.
I was a Simon Dynamic Stepper.
Were you?
Yes, I was when I was in high school.
Okay. So my dad coached Wildcats for like 20 something years. So my dad was like a neighborhood
Yeah,
dad. Yeah.
look at
So
that.
wonderful things, wonderful things. So Kyra, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself. We knew you grew up in West Oak Lane. Where did you go to school?
I went to St. A's in West Oak Lane. My grandfather was president of Concerned Black Men, which was right, probably right where that what their office was. And I went to the creative and performing arts high school, Kappa.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So I probably met your grandfather, probably sat down
Probably.
and spoke with him, being connected with Northwest Victim Services. So tell
Mhm.
us about your adult years. Did you go to college? And what was your career as an adult?
So right out of Kappa, I actually had the opportunity to perform off Broadway. So I didn't go right to college. Shout out to CCP. Um, I actually performed off Broadway when I was 19 years old. And right before the opening night of my show was called Corner Wars, and it was written by Philly people too. Shout out to Omar and everyone. Um, my last conversation with my grandfather was, Pop, can you put money on my account? Because I have to get my headshots printed out. Because back in the day, you couldn't just go anywhere to get your headshots printed out. You actually had to go to a professional, and it was super expensive. And the next day, Papa passed away from a heart attack. And so,
Mm.
yeah, so in my mind, I was the cause of that heart attack,
Oh,
because I didn't know how to deal with that at 19 years old. My grandfather was like a father to me. And then, so after Corner Wars was done and we won the 2003 Oppenheimer Award, we won so many awards. But after that was done, I actually quit the arts, because I took that as my fault that my grandfather passed away. So it wasn't until I got engaged, when I was 30, that I felt like something was missing. And I realized that it was the arts that I was missing. And so I reached out to my old director. I started going back and forth to New York, still performing, on the plays. And then as I was getting married, I wrote a one woman show that dealt with the loss of my grandfather. And that was my therapy. I ended up performing that on off Broadway, for the United Solo Artists. But while that was happening, an old colleague of mine was like, "Hey, Kara, can you help me with my short film? You're always so organized. I really would like for you to produce it." And I'm like, "Well, what does a producer do?" And so I took a $70 course at Philly Cam, how to be a producer, and basic film, like a basic field workshop, because I hadn't touched a camera since I was at Kappa in 1998 to 2002. So I was very rusty. And so I caught the bug because I love seeing being part of the process from the beginning to the end. And so when I was 34, newly married at this point, my husband came home and I'm crying and he's like, "What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, can I quit my job to follow my dreams?" And he said, "Give me 90 days, right?" And so I walked into my corporate office, gave them my 90 days notice, and the rest was history. I don't want to keep going into the story because I have a bad habit of going off on a tangent.
no, and I love it. And I just want you to know, see, I love my job. So I'm the executive director for Northwest Victim Services. And I often tell my husband, you do know I want to be kept, right? So I'm going to show him this little clip and I'm going to say, babe, guess what? We used to be a two income household, but now we're down to one. And guess what? It's yours. So I'll show him this little clip when I'm ready, because I love what I do. But okay. And that's awesome. Your husband was very supportive,
Oh my God.
and for him to say give me 90 days and for you to start this. I know it was hard, and tell us
Yes.
about that beginning part, because anything worth having is worth working for. And I
Mhm.
don't know if our young people understand that. See, I'm young, but I'm old. And I always work hard for what I have and for what I want. I know it's not going to come overnight. So I know it was hard. So walk us through that beginning part, because you're doing amazing things.
Thank you. So it was hard. Um, but I will say that when I made that decision to walk in my purpose, things just started happening. So in the middle of my 90 days at my corporate job, I was reached out to one of my high school friends from Kappa, Melanie, who was a creative director at a boutique production company, and they were looking for an actress for their short film. And so I booked that gig. And when I was supposed to be resting while the crew was setting up, I would go over to the crew, see what they were doing, ask them if they needed help. And the owner saw that. And when we wrapped, he asked me, he's like, "What are you into?" And I said, "Well, I just quit my job because I want to be a producer." And he said, "Well, do you want to work here 1 day a week?" And I was like, "Yes." And so I started working there 1 day a week, and they started casting for these docu-series for Verizon Media. And they're like, "Kyra, can you cast these?" Had no idea how to cast anything. No idea. But I was like, "Yes." And so I used social media as a tool, and I started finding stories about Black and brown people, because what I noticed with Verizon Media, there was a gap. They weren't
Mm-hmm.
showcasing stories about people that look like me.
Mm-hmm.
Verizon Media really loved the stories that I was finding. And so next thing you know, they're like, "Well, Kyra, can you produce these?" Okay. So I started learning how to produce. And so they started getting like bigger projects, this boutique production company. And what happened is that now they're putting all of the docu-series on me because it's a smaller budget. So now not only am I casting, but I'm also producing, and now I'm also directing the
Mm.
episodes. And so what I would do is I would, every time I was done a shoot, I would take my footage, give it to the editor, and say, "How did I mess this episode up? How can I become better?" And start saying, "Kyra, you need establishing shots, and you need this, and you need this." And the first year of me quitting my corporate job, I ended up winning 2 silver tellies for my work. And
Mm.
since then, I've now worked with the Philadelphia Eagles, Chevrolet, Johnson and Johnson, multiple documentaries, and a couple of weeks ago, the legendary, the iconic Patti LaBelle. So things have been happening. So shout out to my husband for believing in me, because
That's it.
I'll say this one last thing. When you say it was hard, it was
Mm-hmm.
hard. I was newly
Mm-hmm.
married. I was
Mm-hmm.
only 34 at that time. And to people that say you're 34, that's all. No, 34 was young, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
42, and I'm still young. And you had a lot of people that were naysayers. "Oh, Kyra's going to make movies. She's going to direct commercials. You just got married. When are you going to give up this hobby? You
Mm-hmm.
need to be having a child. You need to be doing this." And so my proudest moment in my career was when I was hired by the Philadelphia Eagles to produce their gun violence PSA. And on my husband's birthday, they actually gave me VIP tickets, and I was able to take my husband, who's a huge Eagles fan, to a whole
Mm.
VIP experience. So, yeah, that was a huge moment because he believed in me when no one else did.
See, I'm telling you, I got chills for real. This kind of stuff, it 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 does something to me in such a positive Wait, so you won Emmy, is that right?
Yes, I won my first Emmy last year.
That's
Still can't
awesome.
believe I'm saying that. Um, and what made it special was that in a time when our voices our voices are, well, how do I say, because our voices are not being silenced. They're trying to silence our voices. There we go. In a time when they're trying to silence our voices, I actually won an Emmy about the story of Mount Olive Cemetery, um, which I didn't know, that in Delaware, cemeteries were segregated all the way up until 1984. And I was,
Really?
yes, and I was born in 1984. So it's basically 42 years ago. And what they would do is, as they were developing Delaware, they would dig up black cemeteries, black bodies, and throw them in this one cemetery called Mount Olive. And my first time walking onto that cemetery, I burst out crying because the ground was sunken in. Tombstones were different ways. You could see that they had no regard for our bodies. And these are people that fought in the Civil War, like prominent people and just everyday people. People that you can see that husband and wife wanted to be buried next to each other, but you never saw the end date of the wife or the husband, you know. And so being able to tell that story and them now using that documentary to raise funding to restore Mount Olive back to its glory, that was a huge, huge, huge moment for me to win that
Hmm.
for that type of story.
Tell the viewers about other films you produced and how they can see all of your work.
Yeah. So I directed and produced my feature film, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, executive produced by Allen Iverson, and Grammy-winning artist, producer, excuse me, Mark Mills. And yes, it's called Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia, but it really shows a lot of the good things that are happening in Philadelphia. And I use that title because that man came into our city and said bad things happen in Philadelphia. It's provocative, right? People are going to want to see what this is about. And it features Mothers in Charge and my cousin's nonprofit organization, Shoot Bass Walls, Not People. Um, I also was a story producer for a docu-series called Spirit that's executive produced by Steph Curry. That is now on Xfinity and will be living on Peacock very soon. And I'm sorry, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia is on Amazon Prime. Sorry about that. And we were streaming on Fox Soul. Um, what else? I feel like I have so much. Oh, I have another documentary that is debuting this month. At the end of the month, it was funded by Vanguard, and it's about early child care workers. And I filmed about a pilot program where they gave early child care workers an extra $500 tax free in their check for 18 months. And that was a really, really beautiful story. So I have a lot going on. And if you want to see my recent commercial with the Patty LaBelle, that is currently living on Visit Philadelphia, and you'll probably see the shortened version when you're like watching streaming shows because they we have a little commercial for it too.
Okay. How do you come up with what you want to do and what inspires you?
So I am blessed that now I get paid for my work. So the Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia was funded by me and my executive producer Mark Mims. Allen Iverson just gave me his name, but Spirit, the one I won an Emmy for, like all the project that my good friend Rachel was in, Future Without Guns, all of those things I was actually paid to do. So now I'm getting paid for my art. But when I am being presented with a project, I always ask myself, does it represent my values? Is it something that I agree with, right? Because I'm never going to direct or produce something that is not in alignment with my values at all. I want to feel proud of the work that I do. Um, I also it's a story that I'm interested in. And when I'm thinking about my own stories that I produce myself, I always tell these young kids, get off your phone. Get off your phone. Because if you're constantly on your phone scrolling, then how can you be inspired by what's going on around you? Right? So I visit art galleries, I visit different coffee shops like Uncle Bobby's or art galleries like Ubuntu Fine Art, which is owned by Stephen C.W. Taylor, that I actually did a micro doc about him because I was inspired by his story. So I just tell these young kids, you're not going to find true inspiration unless you really get off your phone and really connect with people. So I hope
That
that
is
answered your question.
it did. It did. And that is so true. So tell me what, and like you stay on your phone, what other words of wisdom do you have for that young person that looks like you and looks like me that wants to pursue a career they can direct, produce, and tell stories?
I always say that life is not a rehearsal, right? You don't want to wake up and you're like, man, I wish I would at least try. So you just got to get up and do it. Find your community. There is such a huge community here in Philadelphia. You have Philly Rough Cuts that meet once once a month on, I believe it's Wednesdays, right? For our women filmmakers, you have PWIF, women, Philadelphia Women in Film and Television. That's another great resource. And I've met so many amazing women through that chapter. Um, Even on the Facebook page, they have a Philadelphia filmmakers group, so you just got to find these communities because I ended up finding my own film squad, and now we help each other out with our passion projects, when we don't have funding, and that's what we do for each other. And honestly, Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia would have never became what it was if I did not have my film squad, my community that started out with this project when I didn't have no funding at all until I ended up getting funding and I was able to pay them.
Do you see yourself moving to Hollywood to enhance your career?
No. No, I do film in LA and I do work in LA, and I'm fortunate that one of my film sisters, she has an apartment in LA, so I can always just stay at her place. But no, I mean, I'm a Philly girl.
Okay.
Um and I think it's very important for me to stay here so that way I can also mentor and nurture the next generation of filmmakers. Like I had two of my mentees, Jalen and Victoria, who are doing amazing things, and their own films are now in film festivals, right? So if I leave, like other creators are leaving, then what are we leaving here for our young folks,
Mhm.
So I stay here, and I just bought a house here in Philly and Mount Airy. So I am fortunate that I do get gigs where I can do my pre-production here at home and I do get flown out, but I don't see myself leaving Philly at all. I love my city. I'm a Philly girl all day, every day.
That's awesome. There one thing that you can just say, oh my goodness, this is my baby, and this will always have a soft spot in my heart.
For his films,
Yes.
Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia. And that's because I featured my cousin, who's my first cousin, but we also talk about my papa, who was
Mhm.
president of Concerned Black Men, and I filmed in my neighborhood. So I filmed at Finley, I filmed at Simons. Like it was really a story about Uptown, because this was my community. Um, and another reason why it'll have always have a special place in my heart is because it was my first feature film. And so many people, so many of my film squad and my friends, they believed in me when I said I was going to make my first feature. Even when I didn't believe in myself, even when there
Mhm.
were times that I was crying at this computer and I was like, who am I to make a feature film? This is so hard. I wasn't
Mhm.
ready, right? Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia made me say, screw my imposter syndrome. I got this. I
Mm.
belong. I belong here, you know. Bad Things Happen in Philadelphia gave me, I got all the awards and all the recognition for all of my hard work. And I got to put my city on the map. I mean,
Mhm.
this film went LA and Miami, we were in Richmond, Virginia. We were everywhere at all these film festivals. And it was a bonding experience as well to go through this journey with not only my family, but also my friends and also my husband. My husband's an amazing chef. He cooked for the crew, he cooked for the crew.
Awesome.
So it was really like a family affair. And that's why that project will always have a special place in my heart.
That is awesome. Do you have something upcoming that's ruined that has not got off the ground as of yet?
I do, but I can't say.
Okay,
I can't say because I just don't want anyone to take the idea.
I understand that. Okay, I got it. I got it. And scratch that question. Okay, but we will stay tuned. So, how people follow you on social media?
They can find me on Instagram and Threads at Kyra Knox underscore, Facebook business page Kyra Knox, Twitter, I still call it Twitter. Same thing. I'm kind of like everywhere. LinkedIn.
Okay.
Um, and you can also, if you want to see my work on a condensed platform, you can always go to my website, www.kyranox.com.
Well, Kyra, I cannot wait for this next product. I will be sitting in front of TV cheering you on. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was a huge, huge, huge honor. Rachel said nothing but amazing things about you. So I was so excited to finally meet you. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. This kind of conversation and just sharing company with someone who is amazing, it brings such joy to my heart. Oftentimes in the news, we're hearing all of these shootings and all of these bad things that are happening in Philadelphia. But guess what? We have amazing people who are doing amazing things in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. Thank you so much for joining me today. Peace and love.